Daniel Hawthorne was the kind of man the world either admired or feared. As the CEO of one of the most powerful tech empires in San Francisco, he was a master of precision and control, a strategic genius who never let emotions interfere with decisions worth billions. But behind the tailored suits and sharp eyes was a man who lived in silence, alone in a glass-walled penthouse that echoed with emptiness. His childhood was carved by betrayal. His mother's heartbreak at the hands of a cheating father. That memory stayed with him, branding his soul with one truth. Love was weakness. Love stripped away power. So Daniel chose not to love. No attachments, no emotions, no vulnerability. And yet, he longed for something he couldn't explain. A wife untouched by the world, pure, innocent. Not because of lust, but because of control. A way to hold something perfect, something safe. A way to shield the heart he never dared to use. Daniel didn't believe in fate, but the moment he saw her, time slowed. That night, the charity gala was just another obligation, another room full of shallow smiles and strategic alliances. He walked in with his usual purpose, expression unreadable, gaze sharp, until he saw her. She stood alone near the far side of the room. No spotlight, no crowd, yet she was the only person who made him stop in his tracks. Her golden hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, catching the chandelier light like strands of silk. Her skin was porcelain pale, and her eyes, wide, unsure, impossibly pure, looked like they didn't belong in a room full of masks. She radiated softness, not fragility. There was something about her that felt untouched by the noise of the world. She wore a simple olive green dress. Nothing extravagant, but it suited her. Natural, elegant, as if beauty found her, not the other way around. When she offered a gentle smile to a passing server, Daniel felt something stir in his chest, something unfamiliar and dangerously real. An inexplicable force drew him toward her, each step echoing the unfamiliar flutter in his chest. "Excuse me," he said, voice smooth but firm. "May I ask your name?" She turned, startled by the man towering before her, his presence quiet but magnetic. "Elena," she said softly. "Elena Ruiz." Daniel nodded. "I'm Daniel." And when their hands met, something shifted. A silent electricity passed between them, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel Hawthorne wasn't in control. After that night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Elena. He told himself it was curiosity, control. But deep down, he knew it was something more, something dangerous. He had his team discreetly look into her life. A part-time art teacher, living in a modest apartment with her sick mother and a younger sister still in school. She sold her paintings online to cover bills. Quietly, selflessly, she was holding her family together. Daniel knew exactly what to do. The next evening, Elena opened her front door and froze. Daniel stood there, no bodyguards, no chauffeur, just him, holding a small bouquet of white tulips. How did you find me?" she asked, eyes narrowing in confusion. "I find what I want," Daniel replied calmly, "and I don't waste time. Marry me." She blinked. "Excuse me? Your mother's hospital bills, your sister's education. I'll take care of everything you'll want for nothing. In return, I want you as my wife." "Why me?" she whispered. Daniel's voice lowered. "Because you're the first person who made me believe there might be something worth trusting outside of myself." Silence fell between them. Elena didn't know if she felt fear, shock, or something far more complicated. But his eyes, they held no deceit. With trembling fingers, she finally nodded. Daniel slipped a diamond ring onto her hand with care. "Good," he murmured. "We're getting married tomorrow." They were married the very next day. It was a private ceremony, lavish, elegant, and almost unreal. Everything happened so quickly, Elena still felt like she was dreaming. She wore white, her fingers trembling, standing beside a man who was practically a stranger, yet held her entire future in his hands. Daniel didn't smile. He didn't whisper sweet words. But when he looked at her walking down that aisle, there was something raw in his eyes. Something that wasn't cold. That night, the penthouse was so quiet, Elena could hear her heartbeat. The ceremony was over, the ring was on her finger, and she sat at the edge of a king-sized bed, surrounded by marble, silk, and silence. Daniel entered after a few moments, his footsteps soft but sure. He didn't speak at first, just removed his watch and looked at her intently, unreadably. "Are you afraid of me?" His voice was low, not cold, just honest. Elena nodded gently. "I don't know what's supposed to happen." He walked to her slowly, stopping just in front of her. The warm lighting cast a glow across her golden hair, framing her face like something out of a dream. He had never seen beauty like hers, not polished, not artificial, but raw, vulnerable, and real. "You're not like anyone I've ever met," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "You remind me that there was a part of me that used to feel, that used to be soft." His hand reached out, brushing her cheek. Not to claim, but to connect. His touch was hesitant, reverent, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he pushed too hard. That night, Daniel didn't take Elena like he had once imagined. He listened to every breath, every pause. He let her lead, and when she finally opened up to him, he realized he was opening too, in ways he didn't think he was capable of. She did what the world never could. She made Daniel Hawthorne forget he was afraid to feel. After that first night, Daniel Hawthorne wasn't the same. He was still the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, still the man who commanded boardrooms with a single look. But his world had shifted. Suddenly, numbers didn't matter. Deals didn't thrill him. Power felt hollow. Each morning, he woke, not to the city skyline, but to the quiet rhythm of Elena's breathing. Her golden hair sprawled across the pillow, her lips slightly parted, a faint crease between her brows like she was dreaming something important. She didn't even know how beautiful she was, and that terrified him. Daniel grappled with unfamiliar emotions, torn between his burgeoning affection and the shadows of his past. He stayed home more, skipped meetings just to hear Elena talk about her art. She'd call him into her studio with excitement. "I just finished this. Tell me what you think." And he'd sit silently, watching her hands move, paint on her cheeks, eyes glowing with passion. But with that growing affection came something darker, jealousy. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. It was in the way his jaw tightened whenever another man looked at her too long. At a private cocktail event, one investor placed a hand lightly on Elena's back while greeting her, and within seconds, Daniel was at her side, his arm locking around her waist in silent possession. Elena noticed it. At first, she didn't know what to think. Daniel was an enigma, cold, unreadable, distant. But slowly, she began to see him. Not just the man in suits, but the man who flinched at tenderness, the man who had forgotten how to be soft. She realized that Daniel didn't love like others. He loved like someone who had once been broken, who feared loss more than pain. His need to protect her wasn't just about control. It was fear, raw, aching fear. Then came the quiet moments, the ones where he'd surprise her with new brushes or have a custom easel made just her size. The night she had a slight cough and he insisted on flying a doctor in despite her protests. "It's just a cold," she said. "You could have just let me rest." "I don't want to take chances with you," he muttered, looking away. One afternoon, as they sat on the balcony, sipping tea in the golden light, Daniel turned to her and said, barely above a whisper, "I never believed I could love anyone." Elena didn't answer right away. She simply reached over, rested her hand on his, and gave it the gentlest squeeze. "You don't have to say more," her touch seemed to say. "I see you." And in that moment, Daniel Hawthorne, once steel, once untouchable, realized she hadn't just entered his life. She had reached inside the locked vault of his heart and brought it back to life. Daniel's love for Elena was no longer a sudden burning emotion. It had become a part of him, quiet, deep, and unshakable. He used to love through control. He possessed her out of fear of losing. But now he loved through action. By being present every day, by the way his eyes softened when she wasn't looking, by quietly nurturing the little things that made her smile. Elena dreamed of opening a small gallery. At first, she shared the idea with Daniel hesitantly, afraid he'd think it was frivolous. But Daniel didn't just support her. He hired a full design and marketing team, invested in everything, and said, "I want you to be seen, not just by me, but by the world." Elena cried when she saw the sign Galleria Ruiz glowing on an old street, golden light reflecting softly over her first displayed paintings. Daniel stood nearby, silently watching her, his heart filled with pride. In her every step, he saw the softness within himself slowly healing. She hadn't just taught him how to love. She made him want to be the kind of man worthy of being loved. He gradually pulled away from unnecessary meetings, no longer chasing deals like a man running from his own emotions. Now he spent more time at home, eating breakfast with Elena, making her tea, or simply watching her read with her legs curled up on the sofa. And every time she smiled, a real, full smile, it felt like his heart learned how to beat again. The possessiveness was still there, but it had changed. It was now wrapped in devotion. Daniel wanted to protect her, not out of fear, but because she deserved to feel safe. He realized love was no longer a burden, no longer a threat. It was a grace, the best part of his existence. And he swore to himself, if keeping that smile, those eyes, meant letting go of everything else, then power, pride, and legacy could all be left behind. He would give it all up, just to keep her close. Love makes you stronger and more fragile than ever. Daniel had never known fear until the day Elena collapsed in her studio while preparing for her first gallery showcase. One moment she was laughing, palette in hand, telling him about the concept for her next piece. The next, she crumpled to the floor, without a sound. Time slowed. Daniel rushed to her, scooping her into his arms, calling her name over and over, his voice breaking with panic. The ambulance lights tore through the evening sky, red and blue flashing like a warning he couldn't outrun. He sat beside her, gripping her hand, feeling it grow colder with every passing second. "Elena, stay with me, please. Don't leave. Don't leave me." For the first time in his life, Daniel Hawthorne was powerless. The hospital walls closed in. He paced the hallway outside the emergency room, phone in hand, not knowing who to call, because the only person who mattered was behind that door. He had spent his life controlling every outcome, every variable, but this was beyond him. He prayed. He would give up everything, the company, the money, the name, just to hear her voice again, to see her eyes open. When the doctor finally emerged and said, "She's stable," it was severe exhaustion. Daniel almost dropped to his knees. He entered the room, his heart crashing against his ribs as he saw her, pale, motionless, but breathing. Still here. He reached for her hand, brought it to his lips. "You scared the hell out of me," he whispered. Elena stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "I'm sorry." He shook his head, pressing his forehead against her hand. "Don't ever apologize for making me love you this much." And in that moment, Daniel understood something more clearly than ever before. Love isn't just about being there when things are beautiful. It's about choosing to stay, to love harder, when things feel like they're falling apart. Elena recovered slowly but steadily. She no longer painted for hours until she collapsed. No more skipped meals. No more chasing perfection at the cost of herself. Daniel stayed by her side through every step, learning to care not with money, but with time, with patience, with presence. They didn't talk much about the day she collapsed, but every touch, every glance between them whispered the same promise. "I won't let that happen again." Daniel changed, quietly, without grandeur, by making her tea in the morning, by leaving meetings early just to cook her dinner. He learned to slow down, to live for love. One crisp autumn afternoon, they sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, fingers laced together. "Elena," he murmured, eyes on the horizon, "I used to think love was dangerous, that it made you lose yourself." She turned to him with a soft smile. "And now?" Daniel gently squeezed her hand. "Now I know. If you love the right person, you don't lose yourself, you find yourself. Elena rested her head on his shoulder, her heart beat calm, steady. They didn't need grand declarations anymore. No dramatic vows or promises carved in stone. Just this. Just each other. And that was everything. Elena told him she was pregnant on a peaceful morning, just as Daniel set her tea down on the table. "We're going to have a baby," she whispered, her eyes glowing like sunlight through the curtains. Daniel froze for a moment. Then he pulled her into his arms, his lips trembling as he placed a hand gently over her belly, as if touching something sacred and fragile. From that moment, everything changed. Daniel cleared his entire schedule. Every morning, he made her breakfast himself, steeped her favorite ginger tea just the way she liked it. He accompanied her to every prenatal appointment, always the one holding her hand during ultrasounds, his eyes often welling with tears at the sound of their baby's heartbeat. At night, he'd sit beside her, whispering stories to the baby, his hand resting on her belly, feeling every little movement. He no longer spoke of contracts or stock markets. He spoke of dreams, of love, and of the world he promised to protect for his child. When Elena gave birth to a healthy baby girl, Daniel was the first to hold her. And in that moment, when her tiny eyes met his for the first time, Daniel Hawthorne, the man who had once ruled the business world, surrendered completely. He resigned from his empire, handed it over without hesitation. From that day on, he was no longer the titan of finance. He was a husband and a father. And if you're here, listening to this story, I just want to say, love isn't always easy, but sometimes it has the power to transform someone completely. Do you have a memory that made you believe in love? Share it in the comments. I'd truly love to hear your story. And if this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Thank you for staying until the very end.